Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to Pop Culture Warrior. Oh, goodness, I'm so excited. Oh, this is going to be so much fun, so much fun. Alrighty. My guest tonight is an English-born actor. He is known for his appearances in several of our most favorite television shows, Doctor Who, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Two Broke Girls, The Good Place, The Magicians, The Flash, Supernatural, American Horror Story, Modern Family, Star Trek, Picard, so many more. You can currently check him out on the Peacock miniseries Dr. Death, based on the podcast of the same name, focusing on a neurosurgeon who became infamous for permanently mutilating his patients, killing two of them. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a grand old pop culture welcome to our guest for the evening, Mr. Dominic Burgess. Yay!
Right.
One of these days, I'm gonna
for having me.
I'm gonna do sound effects one day, like ah. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sporting a mustache
Yeah.
right now. I just had an audition that would have benefited from a mustache, so I got rid of the beard and thought, stash it up, and we'll see what happens.
You look great, man. You look fantastic. How's the pandemic been treating you?
It hasn't. I mean, I don't want to say it hasn't been too bad. I've sort of been locked down, but I've been really fortunate. We filmed Dr. Death over winter for 6 months, and then I was just filming in Puerto Rico for a couple of weeks, and then I went down to Colombia to film for a little bit. I'm recording an audiobook, so I've been able to keep busy, which has been really nice. And then I've got my film collection right here, and I got my cats at home, so I've been okay. I'm pretty. I get anxious in crowded spaces at the best of times. I'm the kind of person that if we go and watch a show, that I will let 6,000 people get up and walk out before I get up and walk out, because I don't want to be like crammed in small spaces with people. I'm 6'5" and 300 pounds, and I'm a big guy, but closed spaces are not my jam.
Well, you're in good company here. A lot of us and vets and we don't like crowds much anymore either. So you're in good company. We understand. So the first question I always like to ask: what is your military connection? How are you connected to the military?
I personally have not direct contact with the military. My grandfather, who I never met, fought in World War II. He was in the 1st Battalion Lancashire Division that went through Northwest Europe. So he saw a lot of combat, and I recently wrote a World War II feature film that's in pre-production, and I'm hoping to film later this year or next year in Mississippi. And while I was writing it, I was researching my grandfather, who I had never met. And yeah, he went all through Europe. I found slips where he had caused a ruckus in the canteen, and he'd been disciplined. But he made it through the war campaign and went back home to England, and then he was killed in a mine accident. He was a miner, and he got killed. He got crushed by a mine car in 1948. So my dad never even knew his dad either, even though he made it all through the war, and then died in a mining accident. So yeah, that's really my only connection. I went to elementary school. A good friend of mine, Levison Wood, who's now an explorer, and he's written multiple books about walking the Nile, and goes on a lot of travel and adventures. He was in the army for a while, and I keep in touch with him. And then I guess in high school, the high school that I went to, we had combined cadet force. So I was in the Navy cadets for 2 years. So it was fun, that's my military experience.
Oh, right on, man. No, that's awesome. I to have that kind of history, and I know you didn't have a deep, meaningful connection with the guy, but to know, like, I don't know, how does that feel to know, like, that blood is coursing, a portion of it is coursing through your veins? Like, that's That's some heavy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, God, I would have, because I love history, and I've done a lot of research in the writing of this film, and I unfortunately never really got a chance to know any of my grandparents, so I feel like there's a big chunk of history missing there, and especially because my dad never knew him either.
Mm.
I never had, secondhand stories that my dad has passed down to me about when his dad was in the war and what he saw on the front. And so it does feel like it's a lost piece of history, which was why I was so excited to sort of do the research and find the records and find photographs and sort of piece together as much as I could and try and piece where exactly he was going throughout Europe in each stage of the war. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to track down all of those old records.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I sometimes think, fast forward when someone is in in your shoes and they're looking back at your life. It's like, well, let's see. I can go through the archives of Instagram and Twitter, and I can track what they ate that day, and like, all these different things. And I was like, too much information, probably. But I wonder, is it going to be the opposite problem, that there'll be so much information to go through that you can't find the nuggets that you're looking for? Maybe.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be that you can find a lot of mundane information about what they had for breakfast and
Right.
lunch, but you can't find the crux of who the person was. I don't even know, because my grandmother, again, she passed away when I was maybe 5, 6, so I don't really remember her too well. And, I don't think kept a lot of information, not a lot of photographs. I think she threw letters away. I think, she lived very sparsely. So when she passed away, it was really like all that history from that side of the family sort of vanished.
Yeah, a whole arm of the family tree just kind of falls off and it's gone. Yeah. So guys in the audience, we have Dominic here. If you have any questions, obviously, about writing, acting, him, anything you want to ask, feel free to put it in the chats, and if appropriate, I'll ask. So the next thing I have, so obviously you're originally from, and I'm going to try to say this correctly, Staffordshire, England.
Stoke-on-Trent. Yep.
That's
we call it the potteries because back in the olden days, Stoke-on-Trent used to be the main manufacturer for plates and china, and if you have plates and dishes from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, probably came from Stoke-on-Trent.
Someone in the family was out there doing the work on that. So I read that you were in school productions of Death of a Salesman, 12th Night, among others. I'm curious, did that ignite the passion for acting, or was it already there and that's why you got into those productions?
Yeah, I mean, you'll love this looking at your background. I mean, I was raised on Star Trek and X-Files and Buffy and Twin Peaks and all this American programming. When I was growing up, I hardly watched any British television at all. Everything I was watching was American programming. So there was a point when I was going through high school that I was interested in studying veterinary medicine. And then I started doing the school plays, and the first show we did cabaret, and I was just in the background. I was like, sure, this is fun. And then it wasn't until we did Death of a Salesman that I was like, oh, this is fulfilling. This is not, it doesn't feel like a hobby. This was deeply fulfilling for me. And then the more I did, the more distant the veterinary science route became. And then I went down to London, and I just out of curiosity was like, you know what, I'm gonna going to audition for drama school and I'm going to see what happens. And then I got offered a scholarship at the Academy of Live and Recorded Arts. And I was like, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. And I studied in London for 3 years. And then pretty much as soon as I graduated, because like I said, I was interested in all that American programming. And just as I was finishing drama school, you know, Lost was big, 24 was big, all this American programming that I was still like, oh, these are the things that I want to do. So yeah, I started that visa process and planned my trip to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I got to give you credit too, because I have seen you in a lot of stuff. I've seen you in a lot of stuff, and it's one of those things, you know, you've been a guest star and an appearance and kind of, you know, play these parts. And as I was going back and watching kind of individually, like each role and putting them next to each other, I realized you are really good at accents.
Oh, thank you.
I've always been fascinated by that, because you have, you know, Daniel Radcliffe and all these the Australian actors and all these people that when they speak of their normal tongue, well, it's obvious they're not American, but they do an American accent so well, and usually other accents so well. I'm curious, do you think it's because, like you said, growing up, it was so prevalent, that American television, versus where someone like me, maybe outside of Doctor Who, I can't think of a show that was filmed somewhere else that, you know, is from abroad, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because I was watching those shows from such a young age. I mean, even before those shows, you know, I would be watching Land of the Giants and Lost in Space and all those old sci-fi shows when I was like 7, 8, 9 growing up, and then into my teen years, Star Trek and X-Files and Buffy and Twin Peaks. So I was just constantly exposed to the American accent. And then going through drama school, every week, twice a week for 3 years, we would have accent and dialect classes. And then so you would learn the phonetic alphabet, which is sort of the alphabet for sound. So like the regular alphabet has 26 letters, and then the phonetic alphabet, I think, has 48 symbols, because there's different sounds for A's and vowels. And I love that stuff. I love accents and dialects generally. But yeah, I've done Australian for The Good Place, American for a whole bunch of things, Slovakian for Santa Clarita Diet, Scottish, Irish. I've run the whole gambit of stuff, which is a real treat for me as an actor to do.
I mean, yeah, I really, really just kudos, because it's really good. Because you know, I always as a person that watches and enjoys a lot of TV and movies, you can kind of sometimes pick out when someone's really pushing the accent, right? They're really like, oh, I can tell that's not how you really speak, but you do them so well that every time I would see you, I go, oh, I wonder if is he Scottish? is he Australian? So yeah, very good on that. So kind of going back to what you were saying, that, you know, you immediately started the process and you got in there. Your first TV credit is Doctor Who in 2005. As we said, as coming from someone who, admittedly, you watch this stuff religiously almost coming up, what was that like going, okay, now I know I like to do this, and I know I love this, and then you're kind of putting both those together right out the gate? I mean, what is that for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, Sylvester McCoy was my doctor growing up in the 80s. The Doctor and Ace, that was my doctor and companion pair. So yeah, just to be able to jump onto something like that was such, I mean, I've been so fortunate with the stuff that I've got to do, because I was a big Sunny in Philadelphia fan. Like I said, I'm a big Star Trek fan, so to get to do Picard. And my very first credit just before Doctor Who was Batman Begins. And I never made the final cut. My name is still in the credits. As he weeps. But, you know, like, I came out of drama school and was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing Batman. Oh my gosh, I'm doing Doctor Who. And, you know, they're tiny, tiny parts, but still, just to be a part of that world and that something in that universe and world is such a treat for me because I'm a geek. I'm a real geek.
You're in good company here. I mean, yeah, the idea that, like you said, maybe it gets cut, but the fact that, I mean, you exist in that universe, you the person, like I can't wrap my head around. I don't care if Marvel's like, hey man, do you want to be a guy so far in the background that you kind of look like a bush? Yes.
Oh man,
I'm in.
I called my manager when they did the announcement and Patrick Stewart came out and it was like, Picard is back. I kid you not, within an hour, I was on the phone to my manager and I was like, I will be a sliding door. I will be a computer console. I will be anything on that show. And fortunately, I knew the casting director, Liz Dean, already through the office that she worked at. I'd done a couple of shows through there before. And I've never done this before and I've never done it since, but I wrote a handwritten letter and a card, and I was like, every day when I finished high school, I would race home and sit down and I would do my homework in front of Star Trek The Next Generation. And then when Voyager came on, I would watch it week by week. And it was such a big part of my growing up. And I will do anything on the show. And yeah, they called me in for this role. And you might understand, your viewers might understand, I was spinning out because the material was so top secret that it just said, Mr. Vup, he's an alien species. And I was just walking around the living room going, yeah, but it's going to be different. If he's a Klingon, it's going to be very different than if he's a Ferengi, and it's going to be very different than if he's a Cardassian. It's going to be very different if he's a Bajoran, and I don't know what alien species he is. And it wasn't until I physically got in the room that were like, it's a new species. You're like a big lizard. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, what a treat. What a treat to be able to work on that show.
I can't imagine. And yeah, that, like you said, that's not something that's typically recommended because it's not going to get you a lot of jobs. But the fact that, hey, it worked. The exception, not the rule.
I got my manager on the case, and I had a relationship with Liz Dean already, the casting director, and I knew that office. They'd hired me for a show called Feud, and they'd hired me on The Rookie. So they knew me in that office, and I think, it was it felt like such a once in a lifetime opportunity because there was no Star Trek being filmed in LA since I've arrived, and I was like, oh my gosh, Star Trek is back and it's filming in LA, and this is my chance. This is what I've dreamed of. And yeah, what a treat.
It's a story to warm the heart. It really is. So going back, because I really want to paint a picture here for the viewers. So it's late 2007, January 2008. You arrive in Los Angeles, and you've got a suitcase, you got a laptop, and there's a writer's strike going on.
That's it. Yeah, you've done your research.
I mean, that's kind of what I do. And then, yeah, I mean, take it from there. What do you do at that point? You've arrived, and now what?
I was so wide-eyed and naive and bushy-tailed, and I honestly had no idea what I was doing, but I knew that I wanted to do it, and I arrived and had nowhere to stay. It was me, my suitcase, my laptop. I stayed in a hotel on Ventura Boulevard called the Sportsman's Lodge, and stumbled upon a website called Craigslist and went to look at some apartments. That, oh boy. And, I landed on my feet and I found a place and I got a day job right away. But yeah, like you said, it was the writer's strike. The WGA was striking. And so no television was being made at all. And so it felt like I had come at precisely the wrong time. But it ended up working in my favor because casting directors had nothing to do other than hold general meetings and meet actors because they weren't casting anything. And so a lot of them were teaching classes that they wouldn't normally do and bringing people into their offices that they wouldn't normally do. And so I felt like I met more casting directors in 3 weeks of being in LA than I had done in 3 years of working in London. Wow. London was not my city to work in. I found it really, really hard. And then I got to LA and it was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. Like the casting directors are accessible and here we go. And yeah, but there were other things that I just assumed that having the visa, I would be able to work on any production, and that wasn't the case. And then I thought being British equity, the actors in the Actors Union in the UK would mean that I could do SAG productions, and that wasn't the case. So it's lots of hurdles and whatnot. But here we are. 15 years later.
Yeah, I think you've done very well for yourself. I mean, if you could go back and maybe just give one piece of advice to your younger self that could maybe speed things up a bit, grease the wheels a bit, what's that advice?
It's hard because it's kind of a catch-22. I would go back and tell myself to start the visa process before I started drama school. But it's kind of hard because in order to get the visa to come to work in America, you have to have credits and you have to have worked on British productions. And so I wouldn't have had the Doctor Who credit or the Batman Begins credit and all the other stuff that probably would have gotten me the visa to be able to come and work. I think I probably would have gone back and told myself not to worry as much in auditions. When you first start out as an actor, I feel like you put this pressure on yourself that everything has to be perfect and your auditions have to be word perfect, and you go into the audition rooms and you're second guessing and thinking, what do you want to see? I'll show you anything you want to see. I can do it again. Do you want me to do it again? I can do it just exactly how you want it. What do you want? And now I'm much more comfortable and in a place of looking at a script and saying, okay, this is what I want to do with it. And if they don't like what I want to do with it, then it's not the job for me. But if they like what I want to do with it, we're going to have a great time. So yeah, I think I've let a lot of that stuff go now. And there are exceptions to the rule because I was going crazy over that Star Trek audition because I wanted it so much. And I feel like the more you want something, the more you put that pressure on yourself.
Sure.
I'm sure if I get an audition for Lord of the Rings, I'll do the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, I want it so much. I need it. But it is what it is.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. Oh God, I couldn't agree with you anymore. So obviously we've established, I mean, would you call yourself a Trekkie at this point? Or is it that far in?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have the DVDs and the Blu-rays, and I'm up to date with Lower Decks and Picard and Discovery. And when I was a kid, I used to get the model kits. I had the Voyager kit and the Enterprise kit, and then for a while, I got really, really intricate, and I would get the fiber optic light cables, and I would drill little holes in each of the windows, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And oh man, I remember I had the Enterprise kit, and it wouldn't stay together, so I had to seal the battery inside, and then a wire must have come loose to sort of the battery pack that I had outside, and it lit up so beautifully for 2 weeks, and then when it died, and I put and then it died, and it's been dark ever since. It's still in a closet somewhere back home. I
can see it still affects you. I can see it.
It hurt. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and then I wasn't very good with wiring and soldering as a 15-year-old, I guess. Yeah.
The storyteller in me really wanted the conclusion of that to be, it was so beautiful. And then one day the wire it burned beautifully. Like it just took off and just flew away.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've established your geek cred, you've established your nerd cred, your Trekkie. Do you ever do conventions? Do you ever go to any of those?
I haven't yet. I would love to. Not to keep hopping on Picard. I did Picard, and Jonathan Frakes, who was number one on the show, Will Riker on the show, directed this episode of Picard, and he was like, "That's it. Now you can go to all the conventions. You're going to go to Berlin. You're going to go to Las Vegas. You're going to do all this stuff." And then COVID hit. Pretty much Picard ad, and then it was like, it's COVID. But I did get to do I signed like trading cards for the first time, which was kind of a lot of fun. And I'd love to go to a convention. I've only ever been to one fan convention in my life as a guest, which was in Burbank nearby, which was a Transformers convention, because I'm a G1 1980s Transformers kid, and I collect those figures. But like I said, I get anxious in crowded spaces. I get really, really anxious. I get anxious I'm fine with friends, in
Sure.
backyards and people that I know. But if it's a bar or if it's a club or if it's an event where there's so many people, I sort of get a little overwhelmed and I kind of shut down a little bit. Yeah, I'm not good in or the underground. When I was in London, using the underground, and it's so confined, and there's people in such close quarters, and New York is kind of. I love New York, but it's kind of hectic and manic for me. I kind of like space and quiet a little bit.
Oh, I understand. Born and raised in New York City, totally get it. I go back every once in a while now, and I'm just like, nope, can't, nope, can't be here. Too many.
This time I went back to London, I felt the same thing because I grew up about 150 miles outside London, and so there's green rolling hills and cattle and sheep and farms and all this green open space. And I studied in London for 3 years, and it was fine while I was at drama school because you're sort of in a bubble of just being in drama school and with the same 30 people for 3 years while you're studying. And then when you graduate and you get a day job and you're traveling on the tube every day on the Northern Line in rush hour at 8 in the morning and 5 o'clock at night, it just wasn't for me. And I know that LA is busy and congested, but it feels like everything is spread out and people have their own space and their own cars and their own little bubbles. And the area that I live in, I chose to live in an area that's very walkable, and there's a park and everything I need in a sort of 15-minute walk that's spacey.
Yeah, no. And you have a couple of people in the chats here, Jim and Kaz, or we're basically alluding to like, we understand, we feel the same about, the social anxiety. And it's funny, PTSD is somebody, social anxiety and things like that. It's such a strange thing because yes, 100%, I cannot do crowds. I can't do it. But for some reason, I can go to a convention and feel so at peace and so at, I don't know if it's, the idea of like, these are my people. Like I'm one of the herd here. And it's like, I don't know, it's like strength in numbers or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I mean, the Transformers convention I went to, I mean, it wasn't big. It was at the Burbank Convention Center at the Marriott Hotel downstairs. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more because, I think, the artists from the IDW comics were there, and I got to meet my favorite artists and writers and colorists, and that was a lot of fun. And then I went really early in the morning as they opened up the sort of trading floor, so there was sort of space to walk around. And then as that started to get busy, I went into sort of the hall where they were showing videos and doing Q&As, and so I sort of timed it out well. I would love to go to San Diego Comic-Con, and I would love to go to the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. But I think I would enjoy it more if I was able to go as a guest.
Right.
To be able to, I don't know.
You have that space because you get the green room, you're behind the table, so there's a little bit of a buffer. I get that.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't. I love talking to people, that love the shows and fans. I just have panic attacks in those spaces. I would
preaching to the choir.
wants to go and sort of dip my toe in and see how I do. And I might try it. I might try it one year. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I might end up going at 9 in the morning and being like 10 o'clock. Be like, all right, let's go back to the hotel.
It was a good run. You had a good run.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, considering, again, you've been in The Flash. You Kilgore in The Flash, and you've been a part of Supernatural and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and it's like you're the perfect guest for a show like this, because it's you check all the boxes. It's like, at this point, what show, what pop culture kind of superhero themed, sci-fi themed thing have you not been in? Like, have you
oh my gosh,
anything you can think of you want to check off?
There's still so much stuff. There's still I've got my eyes on so much stuff. Lord of the Rings,
of course,
which is going back to the UK to film, I think, the second and third season. So I've already put that call into my manager that's like, hey, Lord of the Rings is going back to the UK. Guess who can work in England? Alien. FX Hulu is doing a new Alien series. And that is on my hit list. Anything to do in the Marvel universe, I know I've done Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But
they can squeeze you in.
I would love to, just in a joking way, send my agents an email. It was like, if they're looking for a Hank McCoy or a Beast or Ben Grimm, I've got my prosthetic experience and my motion capture experience. I'll do it.
Yeah. Because for those that don't know, in Star Trek, it was like 6 hours of prosthetic work a day to get in there, right?
No, for Star Trek was really fast. They were so fast on Star Trek because it was sort of a foam cowl and a latex piece that came on the face. So the Star Trek makeup was about an hour and a half, and then the hands were sort of gloves, and then I was in a suit. So that was super fast. The Magicians is the one that is 6 hours.
That's the one I'm thinking, with the horns and the
that's like gluing my hair down and then gluing a helmet on, and then latex pieces and individual ears and the beard, and then getting into sort of the hooves and the furry legs and gluing all of that in, and the fingernails, and then making dirt. That's like a 5.5, 6 hour process. And then you film for, 16, 17, 18 hours, and then it's a 2 hour process to get out of it. So it can be like 20, 22 hour days. But it's acting. And so it still feels like play. And I know that there are people doing much more serious things in the world. And so, I'm grateful, and I love that process, special effects and gore and all that stuff.
Sure. I mean, you're living with the mantra. It's like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, So if you're living that, then you're succeeding where so many people can't. Just out of curiosity, because I remember watching you in The Magicians, and just the character was just so ridiculous. And how do you like, you would say these things where I'm like, I don't know how he said that with a straight face. Basically I took a dump in the eternal spring of life, and it's like, how do you do that?
It's kind of fun. It's kind of liberating when you're in that prosthesis, and you're under all that latex, and you have to perform through all that. It's kind of liberating in a way, because you do get to be a little bit bigger. And then it is more theatrical, and doing stage training in London, I think it sort of lends itself to that. And then with the sort of heightened language, I think it all sort of coalesces together to create something that's larger than life and fun. And he's a god. He can do whatever he wants.
I mean, there's got to be something so freeing about that experience of just, to be above everyone else, right? And like, I don't care. I can do it however I want.
And same for Star Trek, because it's all through latex, and then you've got the false teeth, and then coming up with a voice for it, and it's play. It's really play. I take my job seriously to an extent of, being on set and learning my lines and being prepared. but I'm so aware that there are, people doing much more serious jobs, and I'm really so lucky to just be able to get to play and entertain and tell stories.
Yeah, I envy that freedom, and obviously, oh man, somebody had told me once. I was talking with an actor, and he said, we don't get paid for the job that we do. We get paid for like all the auditioning and all the trying to get the next job.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was just like, wow, that's. I mean, is that? I mean, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's especially as a guest star actor, who I jump from show to show to show to show to show, and then there are these pops that come along like Dr. Death, which is like, I'm doing something for 6 months, and then it's like a shock to the system because you're so used to foraging like a squirrel that like, I'm not sure where my next job is coming from, and I'm going to audition, and great, I'm going to take that job, and then getting a job like Dr. Death that is 6 months. For the first 2 months, I felt like I was doing something wrong because I was like, I feel like I should be doing something. I should be looking for the next job, and I and then I sort of settled into it, and then the last month of Dr. Death, as I knew it was coming to an end, it was like, well, got to start looking for a job, got to start looking for a job, got to start auditioning, got to get on the horse and got to start going again. And it's, I don't know, it's like I feel like sometimes actors are never satisfied, and I'm guilty of this too, that, you're on a show for 6 months and then you're like, I want to be doing something new. And then the show finishes and you're like, oh no, I just want job security and I want to be on something for 6 months. And but I'm so fortunate to be able to jump and do different accents and voices and characters, and I haven't been typecast, and I'm very, very fortunate.
Yeah, speaking, I mean, yeah, I can't say you've been pigeonholed in any one category because, I mean, you've done comedy, you've done drama, you've done horror, suspense, and sci-fi, and supernatural. Like, at this point, I've seen you in just about everything. I've seen you on a hospital gurney, and you're in 1,000 Ways to Die. You got to play a character in 1,000 Ways to Die.
Oh man, that's a deep dive.
I mean, it's
one of my first non-union jobs in Los Angeles.
Like, how awesome is that? I mean, obviously, I'm sure the dream of any actor, right, is you want that Friends money where I'm getting paid $1 million an episode, and guaranteed 10 years, seasons, whatever. But the idea that an actor, I mean, again, the mundane, nobody, I'm the guy that knows nothing about anything. But the idea that as an actor, the love is the craft, and the love is making the character and exploring the voice and exploring the thought process and all these things. And I love the idea of like getting to play someone new this week, and then next week, and then the next month. And so I'm curious, and I know you said you kind of want it both ways, which is, you can't have it both ways, but because I know with movie productions, they're typically longer and slower pace versus a TV show, which is much quicker. They're like, you're pumping out episodes as fast as you can. Would you rather see yourself as purely a film actor? Would you like to have that long sitcom, 10 season run on something?
Gosh, I think there are pros and cons to either. I mean, of course, if Marvel called and was like, "Hey, you want to go to Atlanta and shoot a Marvel film for 8 months?" Yeah, of course I do. Cool. But also, I do. I love being able to go from show to show and come up with a new physicality and a new voice and explore a new person and meet new people and work with new directors and meet other actors and sit in Video Village and watch and listen and learn and come away with a different skill set from each of these jobs. And yeah, I've never done, I did like a 15 episode run on a Disney show and Farm. And then Feud was like a limited series, and Dr. Death was a limited series. but I've not had the opportunity yet to, do a long deep dive and be a character for 10 months and then have a hiatus and then another 10 months and a hiatus. And,
Right.
and so that's something I would love to do. But I love work. I'm happiest when I'm working and when I have something to do. And, like I have, and knock on wood, I know I'm very, very fortunate. I have 5 jobs that are lined up,
Sure.
waiting to work on, and the dates are all shifting, and they'll work around each other, and we'll figure it out. But I'm well aware that it's like, oh, it's 2 days in Mississippi, and then it's going to be a day in this recording studio here, and then it's going to be 4 days recording this audio book there, and then I'm going to be doing this video game for a week down there doing motion capture, and it's sort of piecing it all together. But yeah, again, you want to, actors are so greedy and we want everything, and I would, sure, I'll do a series. But I'm very fortunate and I'm very lucky.
Yeah. So, and on top of all the acting and the writing, I sat down and I watched your directorial debut. Sam Did It with Alfred Molina. And I've got to say, I enjoyed it so much. I really did. And I don't say this because you're my guest in the show. I really, because I would have skipped it if I didn't like it. I wouldn't have even brought it up. But I did, and it won a ton of awards. I mean, it won a ton of awards. And so I sat down and I'm like, okay, I didn't know anything about it. I just kind of watched it. And I mean, that was something. How did that even come to be? So real quick for the audience, look for it. Sam Did It. It's a short film. A mortician. He pulls the sheet back. Oh my God! It's Alfred Molina on my slab, and then it's all the emotions and the things that he goes through because he's a big fan. So how did that all come about?
Well, I feel like I went into acting, but I've always been interested in, the storytelling and telling stories and writing and wanting to direct. And, ultimately I'd love a career like someone like Joel Edgerton, who is able to write and produce and direct and star in his own things, or the guys who do Sunny in Philadelphia, or the girls who do Broad City, and Michaela Cole and I Will Destroy You, all these actors that are creating their own content too. So I did Sam Did It as a vehicle for myself, and I was working with Alfred at the time on a show called Feud. And I very sheepishly approached him and was like, hey, I'm going to do this short film, and I don't know, you don't have, don't even listen to it, don't worry about it. And he graciously said that, yeah, he would like to do it. And then from that, I've been able to spring onto Ryan Murphy's director mentorship program. So I've been shadowing the directors on 911. And then I have a few feature films that I've written. One of them is the World War II film that won a couple of awards and competitions and placed in the Academy Nickel Fellowship. And now we're in pre-production to shoot that, hopefully in Mississippi, hopefully later this year or early next year. And that's with Tate Taylor and John Norris producing, and Tate directed The Help and Get On Up and Ma. So yeah, they're on board to help piece this World War II film together. That's where we're at with directing. Again, I feel like I go in wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and like, yeah, let's make this thing and figure it out as we go along. And, you find those enthusiastic people and figure it out.
You remind me of the guy that like walks into Vegas and he's like, well, I don't know how to play any of these games, but let's find that. You just do well,
I think there's so much fear, especially, in the acting community or the artistic community and I've been a victim of this myself, that I was saying earlier on. You go into the audition room and you come at it from a place of desperation of being like, please hire me, tell me what you want, and I'll redirect me and I'll do whatever you want. I'm just here to please you. And I feel like as you grow older as an actor, I've come to a place of letting go of perfection. And you know what? If I go into a room and I make the wrong choice and I fall flat on my face, it's okay because I tried. And if this weekend, I'm recording my very first audiobook, and I'm terrified, but also I'm like, well, if I don't do it, I'm never going to know. And I can come out the other end and I can say, hey, I did an audiobook. You know what? It's not for me. It's beyond my skill set, but I did it and I tried it. And if it's great, then maybe I'll do another one. And if it's not, then I know, but I've tried it. And I'm trying to come at things from less of a place of fear of what if it goes wrong, and trying to look at things more of like, oh, but if it goes right, then we can do this thing and this thing. And I don't know. What a tangent.
No. I mean, it's a great point. I want people to hear that. More people need to hear that. Don't let fear stop you from trying. I love the cliche sayings of like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And I've learned, or I think it was Michael Jordan that said, I've learned more from my losses than my wins. And so I take that to heart, and I think it's such a good message.
This short film, it went on and it did wonderful things, but I think 2012, I shot a whole bunch of sketches. I rented out a film studio for 2 days in Woodland Hills, and I put my own money behind it and got a cast and a crew, and we shot all these sketches. And oh boy, CQ, it was awful. It was terrible. I got the sound guy and his wedding band is tapping on the boom pole the entire time. And I didn't know, this was 2012, and I'd never directed something before, and I wasn't aware of the 180 rule that you have to be on the same plane when you're recording so that the eye lines match when you reverse shots, and things didn't match, and the sound was off and the audio was off, and it was a big mess. But oh man, I learned so much. Looking at that and going, did that wrong. And then the next time I went and did something, I was like, not going to make that mistake again, because I know how that turns out. So yeah, you learn as you go, and you keep growing. And
okay, that's what life's all about. Scott in the comments, I think he says, I don't know if he was rushing when he typed it, but I think he's saying if Pop Culture Warrior was going to be a movie, then I guess Dominic would play me. So
boy,
there you go. You could play me in the movie about this show.
Then I have to. I'll grow out my goatee a little more.
Yeah,
I'll have to work on my East Coast accent.
Yes, it's the New Yorker. I say things like coffee and water.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm hitting a little too hard.
Water.
But I'll have to work on it. I'll have to refine it a little bit.
I'd be honored. Oh my God, I'd be honored.
Jawline going on. I don't have your jawline.
Oh my God. Stop it. Let's see. What else? Some more questions. Oh my God. I saw, again, not a stalker, researcher. I saw you did this tweet the other day, and I just got to call it out because it was so good. It was so good. It basically about the whole idea of starting a movie in some mini cliffhanger, and then doing the 1 week earlier flashback. It drives me nuts every single time I see it. Why is it why does it feels like every other movie you go to?
Sometimes it works. If you're going into something like a Christopher Nolan movie and you know that it's going to be playing with time and it's going to be Inception and it's dreams within a dreams, or it's Memento and things are moving backwards, or it's those I can handle that feed into the story and the narrative. I think where I become frustrated is, there are so many films, and I think what it is, CQ, and I could be wrong, and I'm not admonishing any director in particular, but I think with streaming, with things that are on Netflix or Amazon or HBO that are designed to be watched at home, I think what these films are trying to do is catch the audience's attention for those first 10 minutes and say, hey, this is going to be a really exciting film. Stay with it. And they show you the most exciting part. And then they skip back. And then you work back up to the climax. And it's just... It feels a little cynical to me personally as a viewer, because then, if I was watching Alien and the first thing I'm seeing on screen is Sigourney Weaver battling the alien queen, and then we go 3 weeks earlier, then I'm like, well, now I know that Sigourney Weaver's never in any peril throughout the entire film, because I know she ends up fighting the alien queen, and now you've lost my emotional investment, because I'm not on the edge of my seat anymore, because I know what's going to happen. So I think as a storytelling technique for me, it takes me out of the story because it lowers the stakes. Because I don't want to use any real world examples because I don't want to call anyone out. But if I don't want to see the climax, because then I know that whatever happens for the next 2 hours is inconsequential, because that character's never in danger, or the people that we see in that climax are never in any real peril. And it's a problem that I have with prequels as well, that I don't need to see what's come before with those characters and see those characters in peril, because it doesn't matter if they're in a car chase, because I know the outcome of the car chase, because they're in another set of films that come after this. And so I'm emotionally checked out.
Right. Oh, no, it's true. I think you're spot on. When it plays into the device of the movie, I think a perfect example is something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where we don't know where we are in the story, and that's the point. We're lost in the story. But
Inception, I'm totally fine with it in Inception. The storylines that play with time and such, I'm totally cool with it.
I just watched Suicide Squad. I love the film, but we open on the beach, and then everybody's dying and all this, and then it's immediately 3 days earlier. Why didn't we just start 3 days earlier then?
Yeah, I'll take that as an example. Yes, and it's a great directed sequence, and it's awesome. But then we skip 3 days beforehand, and then when Idris Elba draws his knife to her throat, there's no stakes, because it's no, I've seen her 3 days later, and I know that she's fine. So you don't need to show me you holding a knife to her throat. Because but I loved it. It's a great, well-directed film, and
absolutely.
But just those, and even I'm gonna preface this by saying it's technically one of my favorite directed films, and from a technical standpoint, it's perfection. I love Titanic. Titanic is a great, well-crafted film, but using the device of old Rose to tell the story, it emotionally gives me a disconnect, because then I know that Rose is going to survive the story of Titanic.
Right. Rose is never in any danger at all.
Yeah, it distances myself from it. Where if I had just watched the sequences that were in the past, then I would have been like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh, something's going to happen to one of them. But it sort of tips the hand of the filmmaker into well, I guess Jack's going to die.
Exactly.
Spoilers for that 18-year-old film.
Wait, what? He dies?
But I love it. It's one of my favorite films. I have the Blu-ray. I'm not dissing Titanic.
All right, we're gonna start burning bridges. So okay, you don't want to work with who else don't you want to work with?
No. It's just, and it's a personal thing. There are going to be other people that love that form of storytelling and be like, oh man, I want to see how we get there. But it's just not. It's definitely not.
I can't wait to sit in the theater one day and I just wish I had known this car chase was coming 10 minutes ago. If only I knew to prepare. Come on, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, don't worry.
I guess trailers fan so much now too. But
yeah, that's a whole other beef I have with the trailers.
That's another thing.
That's a whole other beef I have when I know the entire plot of the story a year before it comes out. Like, oh God.
Me too. Did you see Hereditary?
Yes. Yes.
I loved the marketing campaign for Hereditary because I thought it was going to be centered around this little girl that did the tongue clicks, and I was like, oh, this little girl's going to be creepy. And then when she's out of the film in 15 minutes, I was like, oh, oh shit, anything can happen. And I love that feeling. Yeah. I love that feeling of the rug being pulled and being like, oh boy, I'm in it.
Yeah, I think Christopher Nolan does a really good job as far as marketing the movies because, you know, things like Tenet come out and even like the big budget, The Dark Knight. I remember, you know, Heath Ledger's Joker was such a big mystery up until almost the release of the movie. So I think those are excellent examples of really good marketing to not give. Come on, man, we're fans. We want to. I don't want to be spoiled. Yeah, I
want to be surprised. I want to be surprised. And oh boy. CQ, don't get me started on people that wreck things on Twitter right away. Oh my gosh, it's one of my biggest beefs. I had a roommate who I used to live with, God bless him, and he would spoil everything. I had to avoid him at all costs. If I knew that a new film was coming out or anything to do with Game of Thrones, anything that was that water cooler talking point. He came back from watching Force Awakens. He'd been to watch like the 8:00 showing, and I was going to go see the 10:30 showing, and we crossed each other on the way to the cinema. And he was just like, the killed hand, man. And I was like, oh my God. Oh no. Yeah.
You just got to think of it like that scene at the beginning. Like, I know he's going to die. And it's just
oh my gosh.
Early preview of the scene.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, sorry to tank the interview with my views.
Not at all. This is my favorite part of it, man. This is when we get to know the man behind the camera, you know, the actor behind the characters, I should say. Yeah, and my God, this has been so much fun and it has flown by. I could do this forever.
It's already 7:00.
When you're having fun, man, the time flies when you're having fun. We'll absolutely have to do like a part 2, and then we can really like we'll just critique movies and things, and we'll just
and just show me around everything that you've got on.
We'll do the whole tour. So
I keep seeing every time I look, I see something new.
Yeah, is it my favorite? I'm a big Back to the Future. That's my favorite. That is the flux capacitor. It's signed
next to Ant-Man's helmet.
That's right.
Next to the Infinity Gauntlet.
And that's
is that an alien queen above Thor's hammer?
That's a football helmet. Close.
Wait, above Thor's hammer on that shelf?
Right there. That is. It's very poorly lit up, but it's
it looks like the alien queen's like head from what it looks like on my screen.
Now I know what I'm missing. Now I know. Thank you. I know what I'm missing now. I need a xenomorph head right there.
We have up on our wall. I don't know if you can see.
The Mona Lisa with the face hugger. Very nice. I like it.
It's very arty. It's very very
very fancy. You live in your best life, man. I respect that.
And I've got, what have I got up here? We've got Optimus Prime and Hot Rod, and we got my Transformers collection is something else. But
we'll compare toys the next time we talk, man, for sure. I want to make sure I give you the chance. We didn't even talk about Dr. Death. I'm so sorry. This has been so much fun,
okay.
But first, where can people follow you? Where can they support you? How can they see what you're doing and stay dialed in?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Dominic Burgess, and on Instagram, I'm at Dominic Burgess 1. Someone else got there first. It's a whole lot of cat content. I have 5 cats. I'm popping up on Fantasy Island in a few weeks on Fox, and then a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about. But I'll be out there somewhere, popping up randomly.
Well, we're gonna keep an eye on you. Excuse me, and we're gonna anytime we hear an announcement, man, we're gonna share it on our pages and our social because you're now a friend of the show. So So we have to support you. Everybody, like the chats have been lighting up. Not specific questions, but we've been talking about everything you've been saying, and everybody loves you, man. So we've talked about what's coming up. We've talked about how they can follow you. I try to be punctual. I've asked for an hour. I only take an hour. So with that, sir, this has been a true honor. Guys, I'm going to toss it to a break while I say goodbye to my guest. We will see you back in a few minutes. Everybody say bye to Dominic. Bye, Dominic.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.